welcome back to another episode of Sisterly. We're so excited to have you here today. We've got a fun one. We are bringing the boyfriends back for another episode of Girls Rule, Boys Drool. We did share with both Mike and Jack that that's the title of these episodes. I don't know if they were thrilled.
Mixed reviews from them, I think, on the title, but
But listen, we just got to be honest. But today we're talking with them about love languages, and we're so excited. We just finished recording with them. It was a great conversation. So make sure that you stick around to listen to that. But of course, before we got to do our little chit chat, we'll catch
gotta
up.
give our little catch up, our little rundown. Uh, Last Friday, Harry Styles dropped Harry's House. Been
Hmm.
listening to that.
Yep. But went on a walk today, listened to the whole thing, beginning to end. That wasn't my first time listening. I am a fan though. I mean, it's impossible to not like what he
I
makes.
know, I just really like his sound.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't gotten to listen to everything yet because I was out of town this weekend, so I have to listen this week. But I liked Matilda a lot.
Yep.
I liked Love of My Life a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
There's
there's
another
an
one.
There's another one I liked, but I'm like blanking on which one it was. But yeah, I need to listen to it like in its entirety this week.
I also really like Late Night Talking. That's one
Oh
I
yeah, I liked
listen
that
to.
one.
Yeah, but I'm excited to keep listening. I'm sure the ones that I like now aren't going to be my favorite ones in like a month. So,
Mhm.
that's what's kind of cool though about albums. I feel like even if I listen to an album right now that I've listened to a million times, like there'll be a different one that resonates with me right now than when I
Yeah.
first listened.
I'm also excited to see like if people do TikToks to certain of his songs or certain parts cuz
Yeah,
I feel like lately these days I'll like be on TikTok and that's how I learn about new songs that are out and
100%.
then I
Yeah.
get into them. So, I'm waiting to see what TikTok does with it.
In other pop culture news, Kravis is officially one. Courtney
They
Courtney
have
Kardashian.
wed.
They have wed. Courtney Kardashian and Travis. Is it Baker or Barker? Barker, right?
Barker. Mhm.
Travis Barker tied the knot for the third time. This
For
is
the
their
third
third
time.
wedding.
Yeah.
They had the Vegas wedding, the courthouse wedding. Now they're having the Italy wedding, which it's very interesting to me. The aesthetic of this wedding. It's very like dark Catholic vibes.
Yeah, it's like gothic
Yeah,
vibes. Like not just
yeah.
goth, but like gothic.
Yes, yes, yes. Like Baroque period.
Exactly. It's a
Yeah.
true vibe.
Yeah. But I like it for them. It's interesting to me. I feel like Kourtney Kardashian just kind of like adopted Travis's like
Right. I'm
gothic
like, did she
vibe.
always have this inner emo
Yeah.
girl or has she been like reborn after dating Travis? I don't know. Like,
I
was it always
know.
in there and he just needed to pull it out? Or is this like a brand new persona? I don't know.
I'm hoping that like it was always in there. He's just like
I hope so
amplifying it.
too.
I hope she's not like changing
Yeah.
for
I
him.
hope that it's just like who she always wanted to be and now she is.
Yeah, yeah. Cuz I love it for them. I feel like we're in like a new like phase. It's almost like the 90s again with these like emo rockers that are
Mhm.
now getting married to like the popular girls.
Yeah, a new era has arrived. I really wanna listen to I started, but I haven't gotten to finish, Dax Shepard's podcast, Armchair Expert.
Oh, with
He interviews
MGK.
Yeah, exactly, he interviews Machine Gun Kelly, and he says at the beginning of it in his intro that he was like, "This is one of my favorite interviews I've done, like, I love this guy, I didn't know much about him, but, like, I had so much fun interviewing him," and so I was like, "Oh, I really wanna listen because he seemed to be, like, a big fan after his interview of him.
Yeah, I'm excited to listen to that one too. I keep like waiting. I don't know what I'm waiting for, but I'm like I really want to listen to it. And that's kind of all the top pop culture news that everyone needs to to be talking about, I would say.
To be briefed on.
Yeah, to be briefed on. I feel like Rebecca and I have been, kicking it as per usual.
It was
I
hot, hot, hot this weekend. I don't know what it was like in San Francisco, but on the East Coast, it was like almost 100 degrees.
Yeah, San Francisco very rarely gets that hot, especially in June. We had a nice 65.
That sounds divine. It was so hot. It's like we went from winter right into summer and like completely skipped spring. But Luckily, on one of the days this weekend when it was, like, blazing hot, we were in Philly visiting friends, and they had a rooftop pool, which
Oh,
was
nice.
amazing. So we just, like, spent the whole day kind of, like, chilling in the shade at this pool and, like, going in for a dip.
That's amazing.
Felt
Yeah, I
very
feel like
summery even though it's May.
that's what's tough about San Francisco. Like, we live really close to the beach. I could walk there from my apartment, but it's never warm enough to go
Right, you're not gonna go, like, lay
lounge.
out, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you might get a couple good days in the year, but also the water is freezing cold. So, I mean, people do swim in it, but it's not really like a beach vacation vibe. Oh, but on that note, I booked a trip to Cabo in July. So,
Love that for you.
thrilled for that. I'm honestly so thrilled. I've never been to Cabo. So can't wait for that. We're also staying at an all-inclusive resort, which I've always wanted to do. I mean, we did that once when we were kids. I remember when we were in
Mhm,
Costa
yeah,
Rica, but it's
a
different as
grand
an
time.
adult.
Yeah.
It was amazing because Rebecca and I drank maybe 10 virgin pina coladas a day.
Yeah.
Um, we just sat in the pool and drank pina coladas, which is probably what I'll be doing this time as well. But I'm so excited. This is the first vacation that Jack and I have taken, like, just to take well, we've gone on, like, little weekend trips, but this is the first one we've taken, like, out of the country, just the 2 of us, since 2019, so
Mhm. That'll be amazing. I can't wait to hear how it is and if you like the resort because then I will copy you and also go.
I love that. That sounds amazing. Um, so that happened, and I think I've mentioned on the podcast before that I'm training for a half marathon. I don't remember if I have or not, but I'm in the process of training, and it's heating up. The training is heating up. So this week in total, I ran 16 miles.
Oh my god. That's
A
a
lot of
lot.
miles. A lot of miles. The hunger is real that comes from
Yeah.
running that much. I forgot.
Are you eating a lot of protein?
I'm trying to be better about it. Okay, I actually had a moment that really would blow your mind yesterday. So
Okay.
yesterday was my long run day. So I actually ran with a friend, which was super nice, and it was a 6-mile run. And at the end of it, we ended near this like coffee shop that's really yummy. So we went and got coffee and breakfast. And my usual go-to is like get a coffee and a sweet treat.
Mhm, that's mine too.
Um, I did still do that. Don't worry, still got a sweet treat. But I also got a breakfast taco. I
Oh.
know. Who is she? It had eggs, bacon, some hash browns in there.
Was it good?
Yeah, it was delicious. And normally I never would have made that choice, but I was like, I'm running, I need protein.
Good for you.
So, yeah, she's
Proud of
evolving.
you.
Thank you. She's an adult. And it was really good. I also, not only do I never eat savory for breakfast, I'm also not great at trying, I'm not great at ordering new foods. Like, I will try someone else's, but when
Yeah,
it's like I'm in the line and I have to order, I normally never go for something that like is out of my usual because it's very intimidating.
that's true, and it's, like, also if you're, like, paying for it, you're kinda like, I usually just, like, stick to what I know I'll like rather
Right.
than risk it on something you might not like."
So that was a big move for me this weekend, ordering a breakfast taco.
That sounds very good. I like a
Thank you.
breakfast taco.
Yeah, and it was delicious. I feel like I should order them more often.
Well, that's all the updates Olivia and I have for this week. So, why don't we get to today's topic, which is the 5 love languages with our boyfriends, Mike and Jack? We are delighted to have back with us today our boyfriends, Mike and Jack,
Woo woo!
for part 2 of Girls Rule, Boys Drool.
Yeah, we love just further enforcing that topic by bringing the boys on. Welcome, Jack. Welcome, Mike.
Definitely brings us in on even footing, I guess.
Yeah, sets you up for success.
Yeah. Excited to be back.
And today we're going to be talking about the 5 love languages and what they are and what each of ours are and what we think about them.
Yeah, and how they kind of show up in our relationships. I'm
Mhm.
excited to hear about yours because Jack and I have like polar opposite, not polar opposite, but like
No.
opposite love languages,
Yeah.
which
Intriguing.
I find
Mhm.
very interesting. So maybe first we just will share what the 5 love languages are in
Hmm.
case people aren't aware, and also give a little bit of context about the 5 love languages. So the 5 love languages came about in the early 90s. They were written in a book by Gary Chapman. Got that right, his last name?
Mhm.
And he wrote about the 5 love languages, and then it was repopularized in the early 2000s when a research study came out about it. It's pretty self-explanatory what these are. There's 5 of them. Acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, words of affirmation, and physical touch. I feel like those are all pretty self-explanatory, but we'll kind of get into more of exactly what they mean when we talk about our own. So I can just kickstart that my number 1 love language is acts of service.
Mhm.
That's my number 1. Um, Maybe we start just with what our first ones are. I don't want to be like give all of mine in ranking order. It'll be hard for everyone to remember. So my number 1 is acts of service.
Okay. Jack, what's yours?
My number 1 is physical touch.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Okay, Mike, what's yours?
So I got quality of time, but I feel like I'm more of an acts of service guy. But the quiz is
The
spoken.
quiz, yeah, the quiz is
Yeah, and
spoken.
we'll get into that too about, what
Also,
our
your
thoughts are.
It's also
Like-
been different every time I've taken it. Like slightly, I think the questions are just randomized a little bit, so I think that does affect it.
Yeah, and also like the results give you like a percentage for each, and like for Mike, his first and his second are like 3 percentage points away from each other. So
Oh,
he's kind of like a
interesting.
split for his top 2.
Okay.
My first like my primary love language is also acts of service.
Wow, we all just like people to do stuff for us.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. But also, I would like to say, I feel like out of the 5 love languages, receiving gifts is often the one that's like given a hard time. Like if your love language is receiving gifts, people are like, wow, you must be like superficial or you must just love presents. I actually would like to say that I think acts of service is worse than gift giving.
Yeah. It's more
Because-
demanding, yeah.
Yeah, because mine isn't like, oh, like buy me a little bracelet and then
Right, and then you're done.
I'm like, make
Give
me
me your
dinner
liquor.
5
Yeah.
times a week and then I love you. Like it's a lot more work on your end than it
This
would
is
be to just
true.
buy me like a t-shirt that I liked, you know? So I don't know. Yeah, I think it's very interesting. But mine is definitely acts of service. I knew this kind of before I even took the quiz, and this is what I got last time I took the quiz
Me
too.
too.
And I think it's because I'm just a person that gets very worked up about things. And so when someone else takes something off my plate, like I'll love you forever. I feel like I'm like you got me there. The first thing Jack did for me when we met each other was make me pancakes. So that was a good
A good start.
act of service,
Good
a good
first
way to
start,
slide in
yeah.
there. Yeah.
On our first date, Mike made me pizza, so
It's true.
keep me fed and I'm happy.
Yeah. Also, I would like to say that my other love language, the 6th love language, is food, and it's definitely like an act of service that involves food is like, whoa.
like peak.
Yeah,
Love
peak.
language.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, love language plus.
Mike, I'm
Acts of service
curious
plus
why
food.
you think yours isn't quality time and it's acts of service instead.
I feel like I had to keep choosing between things that were like, would you rather spend time with your partner or receive a gift?
Yeah.
And it's just like, I feel like one's more acute than the other. It's just like, I feel like, I guess my love language in like a moment, it's just like, oh, I've received a gift. Like, obviously you're like, that was so thoughtful. Thanks for giving that to me. Like, but spending time with me, it's like, we're not just spending quiet time together all the time. Like, that's also bad. You know what I mean? So it's just tough to pick between like a single instance of just like hanging out together in the living room and like, would you want a gift from like a
Right.
person who just went on
Yeah,
vacation?
we were saying when we got our like results that it's just like it seems like acts of service and gifts are more like they can mean more like in a moment because it's like, oh wow, that's like so
Yeah.
thoughtful. Like you really had to put in a lot of effort. But then like physical touch and quality time are also very meaningful, but you can kind of take them for granted sometimes.
Totally.
'Cause,
I
like
was thinking about that.
if you have them in your relationship already or like normally have them like all the time, it doesn't always mean like each instance of it doesn't really mean that much, but it would mean a lot if you didn't have it at all. Like
Totally.
that would be like a huge issue. But I feel like we always like hold hands or like, spend time together. So it's not like, oh, this time of us watching a show together is like super meaningful when like it is over time, but it's just like if it's like, oh, we have the option to watch a show together or you've planned a super thoughtful a thing for us, or you've taken something off of my plate and like surprised me with it in the moment, that might feel more meaningful just because it's like kind of new and different.
Totally. I remember too the first time Jack and I took this quiz, we took it at the same time and we didn't live together yet.
Yeah.
And so I definitely, when I retook it today just to see if things were the same, and I realized like, it was like, what's more meaningful to me? Like your partner surprises you with a gift, or you just get to spend time together. And it's also interesting, especially because of the pandemic, like we spend so much time together
Right.
and
We
we've
are
spent so
always
much time
together.
together. So I was like, what's more meaning? Like, obviously what's more meaningful to me is us spending time together, but I was like, in this exact instance, like we're already gonna have dinner together, like I
Yeah.
guess if you also like got me a present, like that would be nice.
Yeah.
Like
Well, I think there's like a couple things on that point. Like, I think first of all, like we all have a little bit of all five, you know, like I think one of the
Totally.
questions was, you know, even though receiving gifts is like my last one, it's definitely like there was one question that was like, what would mean more to you, like spending time with, or no, when I think it was like hearing words of affirmation from your partner, or like knowing that they bought you a present when they were like off on a trip. And I was like, well, honestly, like thinking, like knowing that they were thinking about me on a trip enough to like buy me a gift probably means more to me than like words in a moment. And again, maybe that
Totally.
was just in that one comparison. So like, I think there are scenarios where each of the different love languages will come out, even if it isn't necessarily your primary one. And then I think just on also on like the quality time and physical touch, like, or the quality time and physical touch side, you know, as someone that has those as kind of their more primary love languages, like I think it does, you know, even though they are more common, I think they are still like, they do still feel important in those moments, even though they are more common, you know. Like I think we do spend a lot of time together, but I think there's also a difference between like going out to dinner, like sitting across the dinner table and talking, versus like, you know, talking in front of the TV, you know.
Totally. Yeah,
So I
yeah, yeah.
think
Yeah,
there
that's
is a
true.
lot of those like distinctions where it does still feel important.
Yeah, no, you're so right. It's just like it's funny in some of the ways that they're like phrased, or it's like you clearly know what like
Yeah, which ones
what
they're
where it's
talking about in the
leaning.
question.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
what
The
means more
quiz
to
isn't
you?
super subtle.
Yeah, where it's like what means more to you? Someone telling you they love you, or them buying you a present?
Right?
Like,
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know. Like, did the present also have a card that said "I love you"? Like, can they be
Yeah.
combined?
It's like, why do I have to choose between these two things?
Yeah, they could be done
Can I
together.
get a gift from your vacation and also be told that you love me?
Yeah.
I also like. I
I'm
feel
with
like
it.
this quiz makes it seem like you either like presents or you are like a genuine person. It's like one or
Right,
the
right.
other. I also think what's interesting too is like a lot of this is about how you receive love, but not necessarily how you give love. Because I feel like for me, giving gifts is my number one way of showing love.
Yeah, and you're so good at giving gifts.
I was just
Thank
gonna
you.
say, I think it's the same. I think the same thing. I think you have a giving and a receiving love language. Like I
Yeah,
think I definitely, like like I was saying in the quiz, you know, I think like physical touch and quality time are probably my two top receiving love languages. But like I think I definitely give love in acts of service very commonly, and like I think that's definitely like one of my giving love languages, and that's why I think it works out, even though we
totally.
have very different love languages, you know.
Yeah, that's why
So
it works for us because you like to perform acts of service and I like to receive
yeah,
acts
but
of
like I don't.
service.
But then again, like I don't like. I mean, I don't dislike it, but I definitely like feel less comfortable receiving acts of service. You know, like I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
so. I
yeah.
think it's just like that's definitely not my primary love language. So like in terms of receiving, but like I would still be happy to do them. You know, so I think that's kind of interesting.
Totally.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like even though acts of service is like my love language, like for what I like to receive, I really love giving other people gifts, or rather than probably doing acts of service, even though I like receiving them.
Once again, food, sixth love language. That is
Yeah.
my way of giving love too. It's like having food for people. I think it's also
Hmm.
because we're Greek. Like it's just in our blood. But I'm like, if people are coming over, it's like, here, take a loaf of bread home. I don't know. I'm like, do you guys want the Oreos in my cupboard? Like, you can take those. It's like, no, no one wants that. But like, that's how I show affection. I'm like, we gotta have chips for people. Like,
Yeah.
and then I'm curious now that we all know what the primary ones, like what the other ones are for people, because my number one is acts of service. Second, which is very closely tied behind, is words of affirmation, which I'm not surprised about at all, once again. Then quality time. Then physical touch and receiving gifts are my two lowest, and they're tied. Which I'm not surprised by. I feel like Rebecca, you can also attest to this. Like pre-dating Jack, like I am not a touchy-feely person.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I've never been a big hugger of others. Like, I've never just like my mom used to get mad at me because I would like give those hugs where I like pat on the
Pat her
back,
on the back
and
a
she would be
little,
like,
yeah.
she'd be like, "Stop patting me." So, yeah, I'm curious what everyone else's are.
Yeah, Jack, what are yours?
Mine starts with physical touch and then quality time and then physical touch, physical touch, quality time, words of affirmation, acts of service, and then receiving gifts.
Okay,
Hmm.
nice. What's yours?
So I got quality time, followed closely by acts of service, and then
Words of affirmation.
words of affirmation, gifts, and then touching was last, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and your first two are really close to each other. So my first one was acts of service, and then my next one was words of affirmation, and then quality time, then receiving gifts, and then physical touch.
All of us East Coasters are like, stop touching me.
Yeah.
Like, get away from me.
Like, born and raised East Coasters were like, why are you hugging me?
Yeah. What do you need?
What do you want? It's so interesting though. Jack and I's are so different. You two are like
Ours
a
are
little bit more aligned.
Yeah.
I didn't expect physical touch to be so low.
I know. I was
It's
a little
like I
surprised
like
for
to
me
hold
too.
hands and hug and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
no, you're
but
actually like a very affectionate person.
it just wasn't reflected, I guess, in the questioning. I'm trying to figure out why that was. Like, I mean, I'm trying to think of what I was choosing over physical touch.
Well, I
as it
think
was
like
asking
it's like we were
questions.
saying, because like the way that they phrase the questions are, every single one said, "What is more meaningful to you?" And then it would like present you with like holding hands in public, or like your partner thought of you on a trip and bought you a nice present. And it's kind of like in the moment, it might feel more meaningful when it's like, oh, it's kind of like a special thing where you feel thought of. Whereas I feel like we just do like every day so much casual affection that I feel like I sometimes just take for granted that like, of course it means a lot to me, but it doesn't like stand out in my mind necessarily.
Yeah. I also wonder if it's different for people who really don't show affection like regularly.
Yeah, maybe if you're not like a PDA person, but then you do show it, it means a lot.
Yeah, and I learned pretty quickly early on into our relationship that Jack and I are far more PDA than most people. I mean, I'm not saying we're like making out in public or anything like that, but we're very much like hand holding. We'll like give a kiss in front of other people. I have friends, I've never seen them kiss their partner in front of me.
I think that was part of why some of the questions specifically are like, what's more meaningful to you? Like, holding hands on the couch, or, there's even one that was like holding hands in public specifically, and I think PDA can be part of that with physical touch, like part of it can be publicly having even just like simple physical touch, like hand on your leg or holding hands or, like whatever it is. Like, I don't know why I think that can like sometimes hold specific weight versus also like, casually holding hands on the couch or, things like that. Like that also is important,
I think also too, now I'm like desensitized to it because we've been together for so long. I'm like, obviously you're holding my hand when we're out.
Yeah.
Like, where else is it going?
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like maybe if as a couple you're just like not on your day to day, you're not really showing affection in a physical way, then maybe when you do it is like I don't know, it holds a lot of weight, like you were saying.
Well, again, even like, I think you say like, of course there's, nowhere else your hand would go. But like, I think even in those moments, like that still feels important to me,
Yeah.
So I think that it still is there, even if it is just like an everyday thing,
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I do love it. I'm just now like so used to it that but the quiz reminds you that it's like not necessarily just innate, that it's like, it's really more of like a showing of a form of love, which is also, it's like weird when it's, the lowest one. Cause it's not that I don't like physical touch at all. I think it's just for me, I don't know what it holds like a little bit less weight, I guess, in terms of like, I don't know, but it's still important. I mean, they're all
I know
important.
it's weird because it's also my lowest, but for some reason it's like if you were a person who like didn't want to hold my hand in public or like didn't want to like have any sort of PDA, I think I'd also be like bummed about it. So
that would definitely bum me out.
I feel like it's kind of funny that it's so low for me because it's just like I do almost kind of like expect it, but maybe it's just because of like how we've always been. But I feel like if I didn't have it, I'd be like, oh, so.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, coming back with like a thoughtful gift or like that feels more like above and beyond than just like holding my hand or something like that. I feel like maybe you just get so jaded to it that you're like, yeah, like this feels like extra or like very meaningful, whereas like it is very, very meaningful, but it's,
Yeah,
I
but
don't
we
know.
just like have come to expect it almost.
Yeah, I think also too it's kind of, especially when it's like a, oh, you picked something up for me on the way home when I wasn't there, or you made dinner for me and I walked home and there was dinner ready. I think it's this idea of someone thinking of you even when you're not present.
Mm-hmm.
So it holds more weight in my mind maybe than physical touch, because it's like, oh, I'm right here, you know? So it's
Right,
like,
right.
oh yeah, I'm like top of mind because I'm in front of your face. But if you go out of your way to do something for me when I'm not there, or I didn't ask you to, or something, it's like that extra thought that means so much to me. I think,
Yeah, the thoughtfulness of it.
yeah, I
Do
think that's
you guys think that your results are accurate for you? Or do you think they're like
definitely.
kind of
Yeah.
off? I feel like acts of service for me is like that one being my first one is definitely accurate, because I feel like when I think on things where I've been like the most like touched, or just like it made me feel like super warm and fuzzy inside, it's like pretty much always like an act of service type thing. And I think words of affirmation being my second like makes sense too. I feel like my third and fourth like I feel a little bit interchangeable. Like I feel like I like kind of quality time and receiving gifts like about the same maybe, but I think it feels overall accurate for me. Although I feel like we were saying that there's also possibly like other love languages that are not encapsulated in like the five, that or maybe they are but like are sort of a
Totally.
combo.
Yeah, I think mine are very accurate. I think words of affirmation and acts of service were like super close. And I think acts of service for me is just super helpful because I just love when someone sees that I might need help with something and is willing to do it. I think especially even without being asked is like what
Mm-hmm.
I love so much. Or just, yeah, taking something like off of my plate so that I can focus on something else means so much to me. Words of affirmation, I'm not surprised about at all, just because I'm like a big communicator in general. So I just like need someone to tell me what they're feeling. And I think obviously with affirmation, it's not that I really need to be told like, oh my God, you're amazing, you're like wonderful, or things like that. It's not really compliments for me. It's more of like talking about the relationship on a broader level, or like checking in, or I feel like that means more to me than like a, even, I mean, obviously saying I love you is very important, but even more than that, it's like the being more
Like specific
communicative.
things, yeah.
Yeah, I think is more important for me. And then quality time was my middle one. I think quality time is so tricky because it's like, what is quality? You know, it's like we were just saying, it's hard to know, like quality time does mean so much to me, but it's like it's hard to quantify what quality is. So I
Yeah.
think that's just like a tricky one to answer in the questions,
Yeah.
because like we were saying, like it's very meaningful to me that we eat dinner together every night. But sometimes you kind of forget that, like I think I would notice it more if we stopped eating dinner together every
Yeah.
night, that like that's really important that we do that. But I think acts of service kind of ties into quality time for me. I love when we like do something that we don't normally do, or um I don't know, or we're like super present in the time that we spend together. Like we don't have our phones out, because I can be on my phone constantly. And so if we like go to dinner, we're not on our phone. Like that really means a lot to me.
Yeah, I mean, just going by the definition on the website, like the quality time, it says the language is all about giving the other person your undivided attention. I think that's kind of what it comes down to. Like I think it's when we can like take the time to have dinner and not watch TV while we're eating dinner,
Yeah.
and actually not have our phones out. Like I think it's a lot of exactly what you're saying. I think that's kind of the difference. Being very what's intentional with your time.
Yeah, totally.
Hmm.
Because I think that gets the lines of quality time get more and more blurred as you spend more time together. Like when we didn't live together, it was very clear when we were spending quality time together. And now when we do, we have to make more of an effort to be like, hey, we're actually going to do this to spend time together. Like Jack and I just decided we're going to start having a dinner once a week where we don't watch TV because
Oh,
we
that's nice,
we
yeah.
always just sit and eat dinner and watch TV, which we like doing, but I
Yeah.
think we forget, especially now too, that we are both going back to our offices for work, and we're not just
Mhm.
here together 24/7. And then we would come home from work, we'd make dinner, and then we just sit in front of the TV. So it's like we actually aren't communicating that much, like in terms of time,
Yeah.
because we come home, we watch TV, then we go to bed. So it's like, oh, okay, on this day, we're not gonna watch TV. We're gonna sit at the table. And part of me was like, in a silly way, I was like, what are we gonna talk about? We talk about everything. Like, what else is there to talk about? And then we sat down at dinner and we talked for like an hour and a half. Like, there
Yeah.
were tons of things to talk about. It's just I forget because I'm like, we see each other all the time. Like, we talk constantly.
Yeah.
We've been together for 48 hours straight. I have no updates.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Totally.
Nothing new here.
Or but like even talking about the show we were watching, because we're watching it, we're not talking about it.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's just silly things like that. Or I
Yeah.
can like rant about my reality TV. You
Yeah.
know, it's just not like we're having always deep, meaningful conversations about a relationship, but
Yeah.
sometimes you can because you've like made that time.
Yeah, and it's also not like we never, sit and talk and eat. Like I
Yeah.
think what we're talking about is specifically for the like 3 or 4 nights a week that we cook dinner, or
we actually haven't spoken to each other in a year.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like we will, we'll go out to
Jeff
meals
Olivia
and we have
reunion.
we'll go out to meals and we have date nights and stuff like that. But like I think there is a lot of days just because we're working where we're trying to save money, where we just buy our dinners at the, all the ingredients at the grocery store and we cook a lot. Like we're trying to be intentional about eating out less. And so I think oftentimes when we cook at home, it's really easy to just serve up and go sit on the couch, And so I think just being really intentional with, that on those days specifically is kind of the goal there.
Yeah, it's probably also better for our backs.
Yeah, probably significantly.
Yeah, my first one was quality time. And I honestly, I thought I was more acts of service. And as I come to understand the 5 love languages more, I feel like I can kind of see why quality time. I feel like the time you spend like talking with the person and like actually just kind of like building on your relationship rather than just like, oh, like I picked something up for you today. I feel like that feels very meaningful. As much as I love it when somebody's like, oh yeah, you don't have to do that anymore because I took care of it.
Yeah.
I think it's also just about the combination, because you couldn't really not have any of these in your relationship at all,
Yeah,
I think about like
you need all of them at some point.
Yeah, it's like I love, the other day when Jack picked up like a thing of Oreos for me because he knew that I've been craving them, and I was like, that's amazing. But that was the only way you ever showed affection, and like no other way, like that would be weird. So you kind of need a balance of everything. But I do think it was an interesting transition though when we started dating. Like that wasn't really a transition, but once I think Jack and I realized that our love languages were very different. I think it was like informative but also very interesting because they're pretty different. So
Yeah.
I feel like you kind of already knew that like acts of service was my
Yeah.
knew
And
that.
again, like it's already kind of one way that I like I already it was
Right.
already my kind of giving love language. So it wasn't a transition for me to start doing more acts of service, Like I think that's something that I always already did. So
Yeah.
but knowing that it was important to you made it a lot easier to do it, I guess. Like it made it more rewarding to do it.
Yeah, because you knew like that it had a deeper meaning for me other than you just hanging my twinkle lights for the 80th time.
Exactly.
And I think for me it was helpful too because I always know that you've been like an affectionate person. Like, we love cuddles, obviously. But I think it was helpful for me to know that like, oh, it's really important to you that I do things like hold your hand or like check in with you with like a hug or something, because that's like it means more to you than just I'm like, oh, of course we're holding hands. And you're like, well, no, it actually to me means like that you're thinking of me.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that was very enlightening when we like learned that. But I think sometimes we can like come to a little bit of a standstill, or like not butt heads because we don't really butt heads, but I'm like, why are we like feeling differently about a situation? And I think it's because like we do express things in a different way. Like if we do fight, you're like, oh no, like we can like stay in the same room and like talk it out. And I'm like, no one come near me. I'm gonna go sit in my room alone. I'm like, I don't even want the cats near me. Like I need space, but you're like, we could still be like physically close and having an argument and you would be like totally fine with that. And I'm like, no one in my presence.
Were you surprised by what my love language is?
I'd say not super surprised. I feel like I was kind of surprised to see your touch was at the bottom of
Yeah, that
yours
was
as
like
well
my
too.
lowest one.
I
And
feel
that
like I
was
was
yours
pretty.
too,
Yeah,
right?
I was surprised by both of those results. Like we were definitely in sync in our love languages, but I was also a little surprised. I was like, oh, I thought our love languages were a little different. Like I thought
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
like kind of being like hugs and like affection and holding hands and stuff like that. And now yeah, I feel like I wasn't like super surprised. Like after learning what the love languages were and kind of like how certain things are valued over the others.
Yeah, yeah. But I know, I feel like before you took yours, I thought that for some reason physical touch was going to be really high up there for you because you are such an affectionate person. But I feel like it makes sense that we kind of just like think of it as almost a given. And I thought it was interesting that like quality time was more like your top one.
Yeah, I thought I expected touch to be my biggest one, and then like the way the questions were structured, and when I was hearing like okay like this versus that, I was like oh like I feel like I picked touch like or didn't pick touch almost like every single time, and I
Yeah.
felt it as I was like working through the quiz. I was like I feel like I'm not picking any of the answers I need to like get to what I said I was gonna be. I was like I'm on track not to get touch. What is it? Touch?
Physical touch.
Physical touch. That
Yeah,
was it.
yeah, yeah. I also wonder if your love languages like change over time within a relationship because I feel
Yeah.
like maybe at the very beginning of our relationship, I feel like physical touch or words of affirmation would maybe have been higher for me because like to be like, "Oh, you're my new boyfriend," and you're like putting your arm around me in public, like in front of
Sure.
people, or you're like telling me how much I mean to you, and this is like new information is like really meaningful at the time. Whereas like
Sure.
acts of service, it's like still nice, but now it's like we live together. So like for me, that part feels like special because now it's like you know exactly what I have going on or what might like be something to take off my plate, and you like have the power to do that because we're in the same space.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like PDA, yeah, is still nice, but it doesn't have the same like I don't know novelty for me sometimes as I feel like at the beginning because I was like, oh look, he's putting his arm around me, like he
Yeah.
wants to hold my hand. I'm still excited about it, but like I was just like, oh my gosh, like he's doing it in front of his friends, like he's not embarrassed to hold my hand in front of his friends.
Oh, that's
I
fair,
love that.
actually.
It
Yeah, I
is
feel like
interesting. Oh, sorry, no, you go, Mike.
I know. I was just gonna say, I feel like now it's just like a bit of it's more of a blurred line between like what's an act of service or what's like me taking my turn to do a given chore or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Like if I walk the dog today, knowing that Rebecca's gonna walk the dog tomorrow, is that an act of service or is
He's
that...
just doing your part, yeah.
That's so fair.
I feel like it's a little easier with us because I feel like we have like a little bit more concrete division of labor. Like I can like
Yeah.
clean the cat litter box for you,
Yeah,
or because
that
that's
is
like typically
like
your
Mhm.
chore versus I take the dog out, or you could take the dog out for me, or things like that. Like I feel like we kind of divide those tasks a little more.
I think of in the first episode of the new season of the Kardashians on Hulu, Kim talks about how when the playroom is clean in her house, that makes her horny.
Yeah.
If Jack empties the litter box for me, I'm never more in love with him than when he empties the cat litter box because it's the thing I want to do the least.
Yeah.
And so and like I'm so dramatic about it. And Jack will just be like, I'll do it, it's fine. And I'm like, really? Like you do that for me?
Yeah.
It's just like it's so stupid, but it's like the littlest things. But yeah, we do definitely have like more of a division of labor, especially with the pets. And
Yeah.
and even like in the house specifically, like you kind of always take out the trash.
Yeah.
It probably would mean a lot if I did it, so we should probably get on that at some point.
Note to self, Olivia.
Note to self: take out trash once.
But like you always love it when I cook dinner, or if I
Yeah.
empty the dishwasher while you're working, or like that takes something off your plate while you need to work late, or something like that. Like you always definitely take that very, I don't know, very like important. I think that's very
Yeah.
important to you, and so I am happy to do those things.
I think what's also important about acts of service specifically is at least what I try to do. Not that I do this all the time, but like I always try to be appreciative of
Yeah.
it. Like it's never lost its luster for
No,
me
absolutely
when
not.
Jack does stuff. Like I'm never like, oh, obviously he would, cook us dinner. Like for me, it's always still feels like you've never done that before. It's like, oh my God, this is the first time this has ever happened, even though you do it all the time. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think that'll ever get old for me. I don't think the litter box will ever get old. What was I gonna say? Oh, one more thought on physical touch. I know I keep bringing this up, but one thing that I do feel like wasn't encapsulated in the quiz as much, or like what I wish I could describe, is like there's obviously the physical touch of like kissing and like holding hands, and then there's like obviously the more intimate stuff. But I feel like for me, physical touch, like I have such a distinct feeling of like if Jack and I are hugging, like I know exactly what it feels like to be like close to one another, and it feels like very calming. It's very much like a home
Yeah,
feeling
I
and
think.
presence. And I wish like that, because that's so important to me. Like if I'm stressed, I immediately like go for a hug because I know that it'll like calm me down. And I feel like that was hard for me to like get across. Like,
Across in the quiz. Yeah, that didn't really frame it like that.
And like
yeah.
I feel like that's where it comes across where like again, I just keep reiterating this, like we all have all five, So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
there is
Mhm.
moments like that is probably those moments where that percentage comes out in your love language, and I think it's like I definitely feel like physical touch is like I think the term you described, like it definitely feels very comforting. Like
Mhm.
I like the term grounding, I feel like is the
Yeah,
most like
yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like even like if we're out in like a crowd or like a restaurant and there's like a lot going on, just like having like a hand on you is very like
Yeah.
grounding and calming, so like I think that's where that like comes out in appreciation for me.
Totally.
I feel like none of us had words of affirmation really high up in our list. I think mine was like in the middle, solidly in the middle.
Mine was
Yeah.
second, I
Yeah, mine
think.
was second. It's interesting though. I feel like words of affirmation for me comes out less in our own relationship and my relationships with others. I don't know. I think maybe for me it's because I feel very secure in our relationship, and I know like if you were upset about something, you would say it. I don't know, or like maybe you're just very affirming in general, so I don't worry about it that much. But I feel like in other relationships, maybe where I don't feel as secure, like whether it's a friendship or like someone new in my life, like them affirming that they're happy to spend time with me or that it's new is very important for me in like the beginning of a relationship.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's still important to me now, definitely, but I think it was probably even more important at the beginning, especially because in the beginning of a relationship, we were long distance.
Yeah.
So that was like one of the only ways that you could show
Mhm.
love. So that was very important to me. But I feel like now, I mean, it still is very important. But I think if I don't know people as well and they're like, oh, I really enjoy doing X, Y, and Z, like that means a lot because it's like, how else would I know?
Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of particular about the words of affirmation because it's like, of course, I love it if I hear like, I love you or like, I appreciate you. Like the quiz really like to ask about your partner saying that they appreciate you, which like I, is great. But I feel like when I get a very specific affirmation, that I feel like means a lot to me. If it's like, I'm so proud of you, like you
Mhm.
handled that really well, or like, wow, you're like so strong, like you're doing such a good job, or like things like that, I feel like mean so much to me, even more so than just like, oh, I love you, like you're the best or whatever. Cause it's just like,
Totally.
I feel like maybe I take those more for granted, but like really specific affirmations of like things that maybe I was insecure about or worried about, or I'm not sure if I'm handling it well, to then be told that, oh no, I'm actually doing a good job on these specific things, I think means a lot.
And that was like very I feel like they definitely like covered that in a lot of the questions. Like I
Mhm.
definitely liked that was a part of it. And I think it's funny because I think Olivia and I do specifically like the quote I appreciate. Like I
Yeah,
feel like
we
we
do
say
say
that
that
a
a
lot.
lot.
Like if like Olivia like unloads the dishwasher or something, like I'll literally say like, I appreciate you very much. Like I think that's like
Yeah.
so I think it was funny that they said that because I think that felt very close to home for us because we do say that pretty often. But I do agree that like a lot of the questions were about like praise of your accomplishments or praise of the effort you put in to achieve a certain goal, and it wasn't necessarily words about the relationship but just like words to show your love, which I thought was nice that they covered
Yeah.
that.
I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
like you said, Rebecca, someone saying they're proud of me holds a lot of weight too. Like, I feel like you said something the other day. Oh, I think we were talking about this podcast. I was asking you, like, what your thoughts were on me doing it. And you said that you were, like, really proud of me for doing
Yeah.
it. And not that you don't say that you're proud of me, like, often enough, but I feel like in relationships, sometimes there aren't as many moments to say I'm proud of you. I feel like that's something you think your parents say to you,
Yeah.
So hearing it from like a a partner or from a friend means a lot because you don't expect it. And so it's really cool when you hear that, and when you like forget that the only people you don't only have to make your parents proud. You're like, oh right, I forgot. Like, my childhood trauma came up. So
Like there's like different shades of the affirmation. It's just like there's stuff that's more like validating, or like even just like stuff like expressions of like I'm so proud of you for doing this. And then there's also stuff that's more like, hey, I noticed you've done a thing that you've been working hard at, or like, hey, like I noticed that you did this for me. Like I really appreciate that. Like an acknowledgement of an act of service or something like that is something that is also kind of like very reaffirming. So I feel like I really like it when it's like I'm told like, hey, like I see that you're doing this, or like thank you for doing this.
yeah,
Like I appreciate that. I feel like
feeling seen.
yeah.
totally. Or like I get very anxious in social situations, not actually in the situation. It's more of like afterwards, I'll start freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, did I say this wrong? Did I say that wrong? Like, and I remember one time we like left a party and Jack was like, I just want to let you know, like, thought that went really well. Like, how are you feeling about it? Like, I know you get nervous.
Jack, you're such a gem.
I do the
And it
same
like
thing.
it meant so much to me because yeah, I was already panicking.
Yeah.
In my head, I was already like, one too many jokes. Like, shouldn't have said that. Shouldn't have done that. So when Jack was just like, just want to let you know that that went great. I was like, like, thank you. Like, and I don't even know if that would qualify as a words of affirmation, but it really felt like it. Just like it just like felt like once again you were thinking of me without me even asking or having to say something. It's just like,
Yeah, it's
oh,
like he knew you so well. He knew that you would be worried about it. And he's like, let me just
totally.
preempt that and tell
Yeah.
you rocked it.
It was
Like-
also hysterical because I was like, wow, like this really is who I am. Like you know very well. Okay, so outside of the quiz, I'm very curious for each of us, what do you think makes you feel the most loved or special outside of the 5?
It's tough. I'm so sold on Gary Chapman's paradigm here that I'm just like I can't even think outside of this box he's put me in.
I mean, in all honesty, like I'm kind of in the same boat. Like I feel like it's tough.
It's true, especially because we've been talking about these 5 like so specifically.
Like,
They're like, there's nothing else.
I
And
know.
I feel like they're
Because
general enough that like they all fit under one of the umbrellas.
I know that's the
you
thing. I'm like thinking of specific instances where you did something for me that made me feel really nice. And now I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of in that bucket. Or, oh, that's kind of in that bucket. But
Oh, I remember what I was going to say about words of affirmation. It was exactly that. It was like, they're like one thing that I think is really appreciative is just like, if it's like it's a long work day or something like that. And like I haven't, like you texted me something and I is like in a meeting or in a lot of meetings, like I haven't had a chance to text back. Like just getting a text like, hey, just thinking about you is like very nice, just knowing
Yeah,
that you were
yeah.
thinking about me unprompted and like letting me know that is like, I think that's very affirming, so
Totally.
I think that's another one where it's like I think of that and I'm like, okay, that's another way to do it, but that's also fits under one of the umbrella, so
Yeah, I do think
Yeah.
I feel like a specific example for me, which definitely still falls under an umbrella, is when you're like, oh, I planned this, or like, oh, I already made reservations. Like, what do you mean you already made reservations? Like, just
Yeah.
because that's once again when we talk about like the roles of relationships, I feel like often I am more of like the logistics.
Yeah, you do a lot more
person.
of the planning. I'm a bad planner,
Uh-huh.
like you did say.
No. But like maybe it's just like one of my like stronger areas, But
Your wheelhouse.
yeah, but I think it was for Valentine's Day. I was like, oh, like I'll find a restaurant for us to go to, and you were like, oh, I like picked a place. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, all right. Yeah, just things like that, like
Yeah.
in those specific instances where you were like, oh, I think she'll like this place. Like, let's go here. Because I mean, not you do a lot of wonderful things for me, but it's just I normally do that. So when you did it, I was like, oh, all right. So
Yeah.
I think that probably falls under acts of service, which once again,
No, I feel
but-
the same way though about like the forethought of like planning something is like a thing that I just do naturally. Like I can't not be thinking ahead and like planning of things. So to have you think of something and be like, oh, I'll do that, or like, oh yeah, like I thought we would do this is like really nice. And another thing I thought of is something we were talking about the other day, which is like maybe this is an act of service. I'm not sure, but like when your partner does something with you that isn't necessarily their cup of tea, but they like do it because they know that their partner loves it so much. or like I really love it when you like show an interest in a thing that maybe normally isn't a thing you would care about, but you're
Mhm.
like down to do it with me because you know I love it. Like watch The Bachelor with me or whatever, you know, like things like that, or just like indulge me in listening to Broadway music, or like or some things you like you end up liking, but I think it's just so nice when you're like willing to do something that you know is really a thing just like I really enjoy, even if you feel kind of meh about it.
Totally. Jack and I just looked at each other and we're having the same thought. He looked at me and said, "Your shows." And in my head, I was thinking, anytime we watch reality TV.
Yeah.
I watch so much reality TV, and Jack couldn't care less, but you know I love it. So, I mean, you've seen so much reality TV at this
So
point.
much. Yeah, I've watched many
Jack's a
seasons of many Bravo
professional.
reality TV
Yeah,
shows.
Bravo specifically.
I feel like I've
Good
done
friends
pretty
with
into
Andy
The
Cohen.
Bachelor,
Yeah. You're deep in it now.
but I've drawn the line there.
Yeah.
I'm like I can't do any of the other ones.
Yeah.
The British ones, I can't even understand what they're saying.
Yeah, I tried to do Love Island. He couldn't
I
follow
feel like
along.
you actually like Love Island more than some of the other ones.
Definitely more than some of the other ones.
Like the Housewives.
Yeah, I think it's definitely still not like one that I'm looking forward to watching when it like comes up.
Fair.
But I think that when we watch it, I definitely like can get more into that one than some of the other ones.
Yeah.
I think the British accents help. Just listening to the accents is kind of fun.
Well, yeah, then they just say the most ridiculous things.
Exactly.
Just want to crack on with someone. Just want someone with good banter. I love that when they're like, "Yeah, I'm just looking for someone who can have a chat."
Yeah. Good chat. That's
Good
it.
chat. Yeah. And likes to work out. That's all they want.
Is fit. That's what they always say.
Oh, yeah. Is fit. Looks like they go to the gym.
They have all this slang that I've never even heard before.
Yeah, there's so much
Is
slang.
this English?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm still trying to think of something that isn't in the 5 love languages.
No, it's tough.
I'm still trying to be like, all right, no, like that's in that box. Like, nope, that one, I just can't do it. Stuff.
They've all categorized now.
Yeah, it's too good a system.
Gary really nailed it on the head.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You love cards.
what's-
You love written words of affirmation specifically.
That's so true. I do love it
Like,
written down.
That definitely
I also
makes a
make
big
my
difference
frightened
for you.
cards, so
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
make me write you cards.
No, but
Well,
that
I
was something
encourage
I
them.
like set up early on.
Yeah.
I was like, I just want you to know that it really means a lot to me when you write me a card. Like, I care more about a card than I care about a gift. I feel like it is, I mean, it is still kind of like a gift, but
Yeah.
it's like, and I keep all of my cards.
Me too.
Like a crazy person.
Well,
Hoarder.
she actually has like a box under her bed that has every card she's received. Like, I don't even know for how long that box is specifically, but it's like hundreds and
It's like
hundreds
since
of
I
cards.
moved out here for college.
Yeah.
I have
it's-
all my
Gonna
cards.
so many
digitize
there.
them.
But you know, I think that's exactly kind of the benefit of the 5 love languages paradigm is that you know how you like to give and receive love, and then you can verbalize that and make that clear. So I think you did a very good job of that. I think we both made like a very clear effort to do that at the
Yeah.
beginning, and like you're right, you did make it very clear that like written words of affirmation or letters or things like that are extremely important to you. And so I think it's really cool that you can use this like these buckets or these terms to like verbalize that, so it's very clear, because then I knew that, and then you
Totally.
can use that. I think that's very helpful. So
I feel like that's one thing we didn't really hit on yet, which is I think it's so important for people to verbalize what it is that makes them feel loved, whether or not you want to take this quiz or you just know.
Or just like think inwardly about
Yeah.
what makes you feel special.
Yeah,
but-
like it makes me feel special when we set aside like, one night a week to go out to dinner or something like that. Whatever it is, like I think it's so important that you just vocalize it. One, because then it's just you don't have to spend time trying to figure it out. And also like it's so helpful in your relationship, whether it's like a romantic one or a friendship one, to like pull that out of your pocket at some point and like make someone feel special because you know how to do that for that specific person.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's helpful to like. I feel like everyone and anyone's always thought about what they value and what makes them feel special, but actually having the words to describe it to yourself and to other people, I feel like that's really helpful to kind of understand yourself and be like, okay, like let me put my feelings into categories a little bit. Like it's a useful framework to like think of something in a more methodical manner that I've never quite done before. Like you don't have like a science to like relationships, but it's
Yeah.
interesting to have like, okay, like here are categories that is a useful framework for your real life and your relationships.
And then I think from there, knowing that someone like has made the conscious effort to remember what those are after you communicated them, and like again makes the conscious effort to then either express or receive love through those ones that they've communicated to you, like I think that is also really important, is just like keeping in mind that like once you've discussed it, like actually making use of it, I guess, is another thing that like that in and of itself is a pretty big thing to do. So like I think that's kind of nice as well.
Totally.
It's like a meta act.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a meta act of service.
Exactly.
It's an act of service to do acts of service, because I like acts of service.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, I think that wraps up our second episode of Girls Roll, Boys Drool. I
really, really love that title.
Was that the title of the
listen,
first one?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was Girls Roll Boys Drool Part 1. Or what was it? Girls Roll Boys Drool.
I don't even know. I don't remember now.
I have to look up the full title, but we decided to make that the name of our series when we have you guys on.
Wow.
Of all of the boys
Love it.
that drool, you're probably the least drooly. You know what I mean?
I like drool a little bit.
Yeah,
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 just
yeah.
a
Just
little.
Sometimes
like,
when I'm sleeping,
one,
but
one
Just a
little
hint.
drop.
just in my life.
But I do commend you for talking about how you receive love. I feel like that's not a super casual thing for men to talk about. So I pretty appreciate it. I'm sure you
Mhm.
talk about this with your guy friends like all the time.
Yeah, you guys chat about this.
This is
Yeah.
literally what girls do though, like at sleepovers. We like sit in a circle. We're like, so what's your love language? Like that's literally what me and my friends do. And I'm sure you guys do the same thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna hit up my group chats with like, hey, yo, boys, you want to take the 5 love languages quiz
My
to
boys.
discuss?
So I think you should. I think you should all be open and vulnerable about how you receive love as friends. But it's just a tip. But thank you both so much for being here. Can't wait to have you on again. I'm sure you're thrilled for the next time you get to talk about your emotions on our podcast. And to the listeners out there, let us know what you want to hear from the boys. And don't forget to find us on Instagram at sisterlypod. We love to chat to you over there. And we can't wait to talk to you all on another episode next week.